folks, Lucy here again. In our last video, we talked about the essential first steps in researching your family tree. By now you should have a pretty solid foundation on which to start doing some further research. That is, if you followed the steps in that video. I think that most of what can happen next, most of the research you do next can take place on the internet, much of it for free. And today I'm going to take you through demonstrations of a few of those free websites, a few of those free resources on the net that you can use to look up your ancestors and continue to trace your family tree. So without further ado, let's get started. This is the first website that I'm going to show you today. It's FamilySearch.org. This is a free website. You can find it at www.familysearch.org. Just start by putting in your ancestor's first and middle name, if you know that, into the first field, last name into the next field. Choose a country, and then I'm going to recommend that instead of filling in any other information like an approximate year of birth or death or marriage, or a state, I'm just going to recommend that you first click search and see how many results you get, just to keep the search results as open as possible. Now, if you weren't to find, or if you were to find too many records, then I'd recommend going back and refining your search, narrowing it down a little by adding in additional information. But for now, for this particular ancestor of mine, I see a handful of results, nothing huge. Looking through them, and I can tell by the dates that several of these are definitely not my ancestor. None of these Social Security records look to be him. Pedigree resource files, not him. International Genealogical Index, not him as well, but we do have a listing of him in the 1880 U.S. Census. I'll click on that to see what results I get, and here we have an individual record which shows the highlights, the highlighted information from the 1880 census. We'll see that he was a male. We have his birth year, his age at that time in 1880, his marital status, his race, the head of his household, who he was in relation to the head of household, and the census place. Now this information will vary based on the type of record that Family Search finds for you, and based on the type of data that the census was taking at that particular year, if you do happen to find a census record. We'll see here that we can actually view the original image at Ancestry.com for a fee, but I'm not going to do that right now. What I will do instead, or what I would recommend you're doing, is copying and pasting all this information you find on your relative. And I would then paste that into a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, or wherever else I find is best to keep track of that information. And I do have the option of looking up at the original record later. So this is just one example of what you may find on FamilySearch.org. If you're not finding what you want about a particular ancestor, don't despair, because there are other resources definitely out there. Another resource I wanted to show you all is the Social Security Death Index. There are actually several websites that allow you to search the death index. Now these are all records of Social Security numbers and other biographical information of those individuals in the U.S. who have had a Social Security number and at some point have passed away. You may or may not be able to find your ancestor here, but I definitely think it's worth a try. You can toggle this and choose an exact spelling of the name. If you're unsure of the spelling or you want to expand your search of it, just use the Soundex or Metaphone options. I'm going to type in my ancestor. Actually, I'm going to put in her last name, not her maiden name, because I'm assuming based on when she lived that they may not have a record of her maiden name. Click Submit. No records found. I'm going to widen the search a little bit by removing the middle name. And actually, this looks like it's her. We have the name, date of birth, date of death, and those do correspond with what I believe. The residence, this is definitely her. I can tell by the residence. And now we have her social security number. It was issued in New York. And the great thing about having her social security number is that I can then use that social security number to order a complete record of her social security application.